What has made you change your entire perspective on life? My first death in the ICU during my residency, many years ago, was a young student who was hit by a car while crossing the street. I did his brain death exam and touched his very thick, very black hair. I thought, his hair will never go grey. This was it for him. It hit me hard that his life was over when it was just starting. So now, when I see things like grey hairs, stretch marks from my pregnancies, or other signs of age on my body, I actually like it. I'm grateful that life has given me this, and that I have been blessed with the time on this earth to experience it. Being stressed out over a shitty job. It's not worth the sleepless nights or dreading getting up to go in, so I just left without having another job to go to. But I didn't regret my decision. My roommate at university was a cool guy. Played video games. Studied hard. Good sense of humor. We went out for lunch a lot and he would even often just pay for me. Really generous guy. One morning, he jumped off my residence building. We lived on the top floor of a 20-story building. He broke a window open and jumped out. I found out about it as I was on my way back from class. And police officers were all around. Changed my life. Life is so precious. One day you're here. Next day gone. On my way to class the next day I overheard other students laughing about it. Depression is real and it's infuriating that there is still stigma associated with it at this day and age. I was an angry teen with a constant chip on my shoulder. Everything was wrong with the world and it pissed me off. I also had this tough guy take no shit from anyone attitude. One day, my cousin from out of town who I had not seen in years came to visit. He was happy-go-lucky, very charming and complimentary of others. Didn't take himself too seriously and even a little bit self-deprecating. And everyone loved him. Everyone wanted to be around him. And everyone seemed so happy around him. Most of all, he seemed happy himself and very comfortable in his own skin. I re-evaluated who I wanted to be after that. I readjusted my attitude from negative to positive and have never looked back. It's amazing how the little things you do like small compliments improves the moods of others. And it's even more amazing to observe that mood is contagious. It's easier to be happy when everyone around you is happy too. Losing about 150 pounds. It changed literally everything in my life. And the catalyst for all the positive change was what it did to my mind and self-confidence. It affects a lot more than I had ever thought. Honest answer, sobriety. Going from shitty-faced drunk daily for years to sober for almost 3 years. It really has changed how I look at life. How I try to handle situation and treat people. It fundamentally has altered how I view myself and how I feel about myself. My husband died. About a year after we had achieved the majority of our goals, good jobs, wedding, house, kids, on Christmas. Suddenly I had lost my best friend, closest confidant and love of my life. In addition to that, my entire future that I had been working decades towards was now lost as well. It was like having all of my worst fears happen at once. And I survived. I'm still here. Life isn't perfect. It's not always happy. But I made it. I faced every horrible anxiety, fear and terrible thought that ever plagued me. And lived. I essentially have no fear now. Whatever will happen, will happen. All we can do is try our best and hope it works out. And if it doesn't, we'll adapt and soldier on. No sense getting anxious about talking to strangers anymore. Or nervous at a job interview. No reason to hold in your true feelings for fear of rejection or to avoid rocking the boat. What's the worst that could happen? I could lose everything I love. Been there. Survived that. Going into nursing. You see the absolute worst and best of people every day. It's really humbling and grounding and exhausting. I did 5 years as an EMT. First thing they said in class was hello. Next thing they said was those of you that make it into this field will most likely last 5 to 7 years. I couldn't believe it. Who wouldn't want to be out saving lives? Making a difference every day? Then I spent 5 years seeing the worst of people. Our health system, US. Our legal system, things like right to die with dignity. Getting hurt by people not taking care of themselves on purpose, obese, damaged back, or mentally, goes off meds on purpose and gets violent. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad others do it. I've got some great memories. But FCK it, you couldn't pay me enough to get me back in an ambulance. I was in school and my Ray teacher holds up a Bible. Then he says something like, "What's inside this book is the word of God but written by man. And man has an agenda. This can be based on their society, the time that they live in and the views that they had. So don't take these words written as fact but question them." Bear in mind I went to Catholic school and it made me question everything. Myself, society and people. Being basically homeless in a foreign country. With no money. No one to talk to. Nowhere to live. Living out of a bag with 2 changes of clothes to my name as all my possessions in the world. Really changes your perspective on life to have nothing. You realize that things are just things. And you don't need things to be happy. Got a job in politics for a while. Politics presented online is absolutely nothing like it is in reality. Nothing. The difference is truly astonishing. That job made me more aware. Open-minded. Practical. Aware of the disconnect between people and the government. Professional in my day-to-day life. And distrusting of social media as a source for most information. I am quicker when it comes to noticing radicalization and ridiculous stances. I'm also a bit more anxious in general because I don't think people truly understand exactly what they should and should not be upset about. And it's a helpless feeling. Realizing fully that I'm not going to accept a heart transplant. And my life is going to be shorter than I always thought it would be. It's been easier to shake anxiety away since that realization. Though. Depression comes thick and fast sometimes. There is a film called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. It changed my life and my perspective forever. I was exactly like the protagonist, living a mundane life in a shitty job. And living out fantasies in my head and daydreaming all day. One day he just snaps and changes up his whole life and goes to travel the world. It gave me the hope that life can change and get better. And I have taken far more risks and been much happier since I saw that film. Working in retail with abusive customers. My dad. My mom is very serious about Christianity and going to church. While my dad is the complete opposite. He reads Taoist books and is the most chill man I've ever met. He never yells. Never gets mad. Always talks about and thanks the cosmos. He is very laid back and just a good man in general. He never rushes into things BC. He says they will come to you in the right time when they need to. Anti-anxiety depression meds. Years of counseling. Loving and supportive family and friends. Relatively successful in my career of choice equals meaningless. My life was essentially a minute-to-minute struggle. Imagine your worst moment of panic and then imagine you had that non-stop. I dragged myself to my GP and got put on meds with little hope of it achieving any realistic change. I was wrong. I still have ups and downs, but the difference that medication has made to my life is almost beyond description. Thank you Big Pharma. The reality that so many mediocre people exist in this world that have way too high of an opinion of themselves and choose to back it with words instead of demonstrable action. The bigger game you talk. Generally. The less you actually are worth. Do it. Don't talk about it. Finding my wife. And realizing that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. When we had been dating for a couple of years. I woke up one morning. Thinking about my plans for the day. I had this sudden realization that every day I spend with her is better than any day I spend without her. And that if I have the opportunity to spend the rest of my life with her. I'd be crazy to jeopardize that in any way. It really focused my thinking about a few things in my life then and in the time since. Being the shoulder to cry on advice guy for all the guys that lived on my dorm floor freshman year of college. Semicolon. Learned a lot about people that you'd never know from looking at them or being with them in public. Semicolon. The realization that I could sit around complaining and waiting for other people to fix my life, or I could get off my ass and do what I could to fix my own life. It made the difference between working a dead-end job that I loathed and tripling my income over the next 10 years. Got in a car accident. Like a bad one. I was going through a rough time, you know how it is. When that existential dread post high school but haven't started uni hits. I was feeling pretty depressed and suicidal at one point. While all those feelings of dread, anxiety and despair washed away rather quickly, the accident totaled my little SUV. I flipped and rolled onto my roof. My passenger and me? Completely fine. A little sore. A little stiff. Some minor cuts and scrapes. But no damage. Completely changed my perspective on my life and I wanted to live. One day I sat down in thought and realized that no one cares as much as you think they do. Yeah. People may judge you in passing. See you on the street and think what a dweeb or whatever. But in the end you're out of their mind in 5 seconds. It helped a lot with my anxiety and agoraphobia. Yes. If you call attention to yourself, people might remember you. But in general people don't care about things, and every little thing that you sit there and worry about are things that no one cares about. And in the end, FCK it. What's it matter? I'd rather live life being made fun of than live life huddled up in a room worried about what people might think. Losing my mom at 19. No siblings. No father to fall back on. Right in the middle of university. Learned a lot about what I was capable of and that true happiness can still be found in the midst of tragedy. Gave me a lot of confidence moving forward. Especially when I find myself in unfamiliar and uncomfortable positions in life. Produced some of the purest, deepest friendships and moments with a variety of people in my life that I can look back and cherish forever. Reminds you how much of life is chalked up to destruction and rebuilding. Becoming a waiter. Found out that people are awful for the most part. But I keep serving for those few regular beautiful patrons that make my day better. Be kind to your waiters, waitresses. When you think someone is judging you, he's 99% not. I was a young teenager and skiing with my then stepmother, and I told her I feared all the people on the lift watching me screw up, and she said you're never going to see them again. Made me much less self-conscious. One of my middle school acquaintances, friend of friends, passed away on Valentine's Day in 2002. I was in 7th grade when I heard the news on the morning announcements. The week prior I was on the stage as he was helping set up for the Valentine's Day dance that weekend. He verbally talked to me and physically pinched my cheeks as they were abnormally large, fat, at the time. When I heard that he was no longer with us due to him climbing on some grapevines and the vine he decided to swing from broke and he snapped his neck, we lived in the sticks. I will never forget the feeling I had that morning. I did. And have done the exact same thing as he did, and I'm still here. It was my first true YOLO feeling I've ever felt, and it's manifested itself into my everyday way of thinking and living. Semicolon. R.I.P. Brett. I found myself homeless at the age of 14 in New York City. Manhattan to be exact. Best thing that ever happened to me. It made me realize for the remainder of my life that if something in my life is going to happen, no matter how big or small, it is not going to happen unless I do it myself. I have never depended on anyone for anything, and I turned 60 last year. I have never been at the mercy of another human being because I learned early on that you have to be self-sufficient. When I thought I might have cancer, for a month I lived in absolute terror. Crying. Having panic attacks. And feeling sheer dread. I thought about how I should really be grateful for every day for my good health. It was absolutely shifting. Acid absolutely changed my perspective. It made me realize that people's ultimate goal is almost always happiness. However tangential. It showed me that there is beauty in the little things. Like what rocks look like up close. Or the way the edges of clouds look. It showed me how simple the world really is, despite its complexity. Divorce. My ex cheated with my best friend. Then left me for her. I was a Sam to a toddler and had nothing. Losing everything in the divorce was a real wake-up call for me. I had a little guy to raise and I didn't want him to grow up watching me be bitter and barely SCRping by. I know I shouldn't compare myself to others. But his father is rich. His grandparents are richer. And I come from a lower class family with lots of education. But no money. So I picked myself up. Kept my thoughts positive. And changed my situation. Now I make more money working in IT than the guys I went back to school with. I'm now a soldier for my son to be proud of. I've dated. But after 5 years I'm still single and strong. While his father quickly married his affair partner. I've found my strength and am happier alone than I ever was married. I'm still improving and things don't always go my way. But life is good. When I started dating my ex, she grew up on a reservation and was working 2 jobs to put herself through community college. I had coasted through life and was making 4x what she made through 2 jobs. I got to see how hardworking she was and she still needed food stamps to make ends meet. She wasn't lazy. She desperately wanted an education. Yet she was constantly struggling. That was the first year I voted for a Democrat. All of my preconceptions about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps were rocked to the core. I realized I had so many more opportunities handed to me just because of my family and the people we knew. The fact that love ain't always enough. My first serious, long-term relationship. Well, specifically the ending of it. Taught me a lot about myself and what my weaknesses and blind spots were. Unfortunately it's far too late to fix any of that damage. My attempted suicide made me appreciate life again. As soon as I start to think about the cosmos, galaxies, time, infinity and stuff, everything seems so pointless. Cancer sickness of a loved one. It's a sobering experience. It makes you realize that our lives are short. That nothing is guaranteed to us. That each day is a gift that I should be thankful for, reflecting that these are the good times before I pass them by. And that you should make sure the time you have is spent on things that you really care about, in my case. Surrounding myself with the ones I love and giving everything I've got till there's nothing left. The realization that I don't have to be like my mother always wanted me to be. Because I'm 28. I should be adulting. LSD. I had one extreme trip on shrooms almost 20 years ago. And I agree with this. It took a lot out of me. And I'm not eager to do it again. But I do feel like I gained something important and beautiful from that one experience. A lasting and greater sense of the connectedness of people. And places. And things. It's just something I carry around in my heart. Like a treasured photo from a special vacation tucked in your wallet. Grad school doing a PhD. And being essentially kicked out for not wanting to work 50+ hours a week 52 weeks a year. Even though I absolutely love the subject I was studying in grad school. I probably spent about 55% of my time doing administrative bullshit and 30% of it doing stuff that was almost sorta kinda a little related to what I was interested in, but not really. I started talking to more people who have regular jobs and realized that the whole work hard to do what you love. Have passion for your work is bullshit and leads to being taken advantage of. And in the case of academia, it's taken to an extreme because you're supposed to work for the love of learning instead of, paying your bills. From now on I'm not going to let myself be guilted or pressured into doing extra unless there is guaranteed compensation, financial or something else. But it must be something tangible. Not feels. Next jobs I get. I'm not going to be in the rat race or climb the ladder. I'm not leaving academia for more money. I'm leaving it for more time. Having children. Having them puts everything into perspective. The 2016 election. People on both sides went nuts and the media has profited off of them ever since. The time I got reincarnated as a slime. Having my first child,